Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Chanel Moore and I am the Peer Support Coordinator here at Lung Foundation Australia. I'd like to begin this session by first acknowledging the traditional owners of land throughout Australia and pay our respects to them and their cultures and to elders past and present. Today, we're very pleased to be bringing you this webinar, Life with PAH Treatment, which is going to be a full Q&A format with our lived experience panel. And I would also like to thank Janssen Australia and New Zealand for proudly supporting this webinar. Before we open up the discussion and I introduce our fantastic panelists, just a couple of quick housekeeping points. We will record this session, so if you do need to leave at any point, you will be able to access the resource on demand when you can at a later date. And we will notify everyone who's registered when the recording is available. As I said, we've got a full Q&A session, so that means all of those questions that you submitted before the live session and any questions that you have during this webinar, you can use that Q&A function that you should see on your screen to put through any questions that you have. Now, the responses to those questions will be from a lived experience perspective. So this isn't going to be specific health advice from health professionals. It's going to be all about what it's like from the perspective of someone living with PH or PAH. So responses will be of a general nature. But look, I am really excited to announce that we will have a bonus on-demand resource available to follow up from this webinar. Any questions that we're not able to answer today, any common questions and themes that are coming through from you, we will put them to one of our PAH health professionals who's going to sit down with me and address some of those common questions and themes. So that will also be made available to everyone later this month. So I am very pleased to be able to introduce our fantastic speakers today. So we have people representing different parts of the country, which is great. We have Kate from Victoria, Kylie, New South Wales, Lucy, Western Australia, and Tegan from Victoria. Now, Kate, Kylie, Lucy, and Tegan, they are all living with PH or PAH, a huge advocates for people impacted by this lung disease. So raising awareness, increasing access to information and support and resources to help people live as best as they can with this condition. So we're very fortunate to have all of them joining us today. And look, on behalf of Lung Foundation Australia, thank you to all of you for coming along, being so open and your willingness to share. And I know all of you are really passionate about, helping other people to live well and sharing your stories of hope as well. So what I might do is I'll hand over to you one at a time, just so people can put names to faces. And if you just want to say hello, and then what we'll do is we'll get straight into these questions. And look, thank you so much for submitting all of those questions too. It's great to hear from our community and have some people with lived experience answering them. So Tegan, I might hand over to you first to say hello and introduce yourself.
Hi everybody, my name is Tegan. I was diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension when I was 5, so this is way back in 1995. At the moment, I'm on triple therapy. I work full-time as a nurse in a cancer hospital, and I'm loving living, I guess, and can't wait to get back to travel, which that's one of my passions.
Great, thank you, Tegan. Kate, I think you're next on my screen.
Hi everyone, my name is Kate, and I was diagnosed with what was called idiopathic pulmonary hypertension just after my daughter was born. She was born in 1990. So I think she was about 2 when I was diagnosed. So I can trace symptoms way back to just after she was born. So I've been diagnosed for about 28 years and have had progressive medications added and added, that fighting all the way. And I'm really happy to be here speaking to everyone and speaking about my experiences.
Thank you so much, Kate. And Kylie, we'll head over to you.
Hi, I'm Kylie. I was diagnosed in October 2006 and I'm on triple therapy also. I have 2 kids and was diagnosed after my second baby, a fair while afterwards though. And I was a chef up until probably 5 years ago. And I just continue now to make this disease known, I guess, to others. So yeah, it's good to be here.
Amazing, thank you, Kylie. And Lucy from WA, hello.
Hi everyone. Yes, I'm in wait a while, so that's why I'm lucky last as usual. I was diagnosed in 1988, the same week that Home and Away came on your TV screens, and yeah, still kicking. I used to be a primary school teacher, and now I just dabble in other things to keep me busy. And no questions out of bounds for me, no matter how sort of intimate you might think it is, because I know sometimes your mind goes to really strange places with your fears. So, feel free to ask me anything you want. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you, all of you, for introducing yourself. So, look, we will get into those questions. And look, just a reminder, you can submit those in through that Q&A box. So, please, you won't be interrupting the webinar at any point. If you do submit a question, you can do so anonymously if you prefer to do that. But we will get started with some of those pre-submitted questions. Now, a few people were asking about how our panel are coping or adjusting with living with either other lung conditions or other conditions that might be impacting their PAH. So, Tegan, I might hand over to you for this one, and then anyone else who wants to add in any thoughts or experiences to please go ahead. So over to you, Tegan.
So I'll just start with, I was diagnosed way back when I was 5. So I guess each diagnosis as I go along is sort of an addition. Although I will mention that I did have epilepsy leading up to my diagnosis with pulmonary hypertension. And so the process has sort of been an addition of each, management of each diagnosis, addition of medications, and each time it can be quite overwhelming. And I guess the way I manage it is to be really organized about it and really focus on what I need to do and the practical sides of things. So when I was about 13 or 14, I was diagnosed with some lumps on my thyroid. And so, going through the process of ruling out what that was and not over panicking, I guess, is something that we do is we catastrophize everything that's going on with us. We've got that pulmonary hypertension in the background, and that's quite a big diagnosis to have to manage and deal with. And then as time goes on, I'm adding different problems that need managing on top. So I have to use my family and friends to support me, to support myself, because I don't think I can manage it on my own. And I just need that little bit of support to be practical about these things without being too dramatic. Just last year, I got diagnosed with anemia, and that can be quite closely related to my pulmonary hypertension. And a series of errors. I was allergic to the oral iron tablets. And so I was being very dramatic about having to have an iron infusion because I was worried I'd be allergic to that as well. So just being really open with my medical team to just see, is it possible that I could be allergic to the IV iron, and going through that process of getting that resolved, and then seeing a gastroenterologist to talk through how my pulmonary hypertension might be related to my low iron, and just be really practical about these things. I have a live Google Doc that I use that I've shared with my sisters and my mum and my best friend. And that live Google Doc has my whole medical history, start to finish, all my medical diagnosis, medications, allergies, things that I do and don't want. If the choice is taken away from me, going and getting a will, just being very practical. And that's the best way that I feel I can manage things overall, because it does get very overwhelming. And I tend to overwhelm new doctors when I talk to them. So being just very isolated about what I need to tell which doctor, and be, as open as needed, but be very practical about it.
Great, thank you. And that's a lot of organisation, it sounds like, and knowing exactly what's what and who needs to know what aspects of your treatment and your health. Now, is there anyone else from the panel who wanted to add anything there about how they might cope with other conditions that might also impact their PAH?
I don't have any other diagnoses, unless you want to call menopause and also a diagnosis, but that's a great idea, Tegan, about the live Google Doc. I've never thought of that either, and that's a great idea. So thank you, and being really organised. And you touched on the support from your family and friends. I have that as well, and that's really, really important. My husband is amazing, so yeah, that's really, really important to have that support and that help. It really does great. Thank you.
Well said, Kate. And we've actually just had a live question come through that does relate to that network of support. So someone has said, how do you manage constantly having to explain a rare condition to others? Now, I'm with no doubt that you've all had to experience this, and we'll all have different strategies. I'd love to hear from all of you. I might throw over to Lucy if you wanted to perhaps share there, and then everyone else, please do chime in and share your thoughts. But Lucy, if you wanted to start us off.
Yeah, to me, PAH is just so matter of fact that if people ask me a question, if I feel like explaining to them, I will. And if not, then, I don't. I'll just really minimise the issue. But, I do a lot of sessions with trainee doctors and doctors who are going on to physician to become specialists in a huge range of fields. So I'm very, very used to being examined and explaining, and it just doesn't bother me. So I just, it's all about giving as much information to people who it matters to, and to other people, they're just a little bit curious, and there's not a lot of point in giving them a lot of information. So it really is just a personal choice. And as I said, it doesn't bother me. I'm very pragmatic about things, very practical about things. So yeah, I'm probably not really very helpful on that one.
No, that's great. It's great to hear everyone's experiences. Is there anyone else that would like to share their experiences with talking about their diagnosis? Yeah, Tegan.
I'm just feeding off what Lucy said. I do agree. I think there's a time and a place to explain your diseases to somebody. I'm more than happy to explain my disease to a doctor over and over and over again. I want them to give me the best care. If they haven't taken the time to read all my notes, that's understandable. There's a lot of them. But, someone stopping me in the street asking me what this is it's none of their business. And I do try to hide my pump and my dressings as much as I can, because I don't want people to be aware of it. It's sort of personal to me, and that's what I have chosen to do and how I live it. My friends and family are all very aware of my condition. I post very openly on Instagram and Facebook, mostly to draw attention to pulmonary hypertension and to spread the word about PAH online and share my experience with those internationally and locally. But generally speaking, it's quite a private matter.
Thank you, Tegan. Kate, you had something?
Yeah. Hi, I have done various sessions in places that I work, based around the Pulmonary Hypertension Awareness Month, which we're in right now, and also the day, which is May the 5th, I believe. And then I've just tried to do various different things to make it fun and to make it informative. And last night, I actually did a session with a lot of very close friends who we see over Zoom, and we do a trivia night every fortnight. And I did the straw challenge with them, which I hadn't done before. And if you don't know what that is, it's getting them to put a straw, to breathe through the straw, holding their nose and breathing through that. They can't breathe through their nose at all. And it was get really eye-opening for them. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions that are put forward to me. But pulmonary hypertension is an invisible disease. You can't see it, so you may look to be very healthy, look like there's nothing wrong. But on the inside, we all know that that's not correct, not true. So it's very difficult to, I know I do, I think, oh, they must think I'm being lazy, or, you know, why are they looking at me like that? And you project perhaps what you feel that other people are thinking, and sometimes it can be very difficult not to take that on, because they may not be thinking that at all. So again, it can be really difficult, but yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions, which is again why I was happy to put my hand up for this, to spread that word. Yeah, any questions?
Thank you, Kate. And Lucy, were you wanting to add something there, or not?
No, I'm good.
Okay, you're good. All right. Well, look, we'll go into some next questions. So we've had a few people actually reach out and ask around oxygen. So we've had someone live now just check in and see if anyone on the panel is on oxygen. And we also had people submitting in questions around, how have you found travel with oxygen? So Lucy, would you be happy to answer to any of those questions?
If I get to talk about travel, absolutely. Tegan, I'm with you on this one. I just live to travel. So oxygen in the early days, well, actually not in the early days, probably about 10 years ago, I was on oxygen for a little while at home as well. But thankfully now that my triple therapy has kicked in, I don't need it all the time, just for flying. So I'm going to talk mainly about travel, and largely flying and overseas travel. And in conjunction with the oxygen, the IV medication is a huge factor when considering overseas travel. So I'm going to try and go in order. The very first thing I would recommend is to do your planning and preparation by researching your destination as to whether it's actually a really good place for you to go, because if it's high altitude, for instance, I've had to swipe Machu Picchu off my bucket list because that's just not going to happen. And the same with airlines, they all have different they just all have different ideas about things. So, you go through the special handling. Some airlines will provide oxygen for you, bottled oxygen. Some want you to provide your own. Some of them will do it free of charge. Most of them will charge for it or ask you to provide your own. Personally, from many years of travelling, I prefer to be completely self-sufficient and take a portable oxygen concentrator, because I have had some bad experiences with cabin crew who have no idea how to use the equipment, and I don't like putting my life in their hands, so to speak. But to me, the experience is worth me going through all that planning and preparation. The one thing I would say, if you do choose to use an airline that provides the oxygen, it will be a mask. So if for ease, remember to take your own cannula. All my experience so far is pre-COVID, of course. So things will have changed when you now have to wear the mask on board the plane as well anyway, so that might change things. But having a cannula will certainly, make eating and drinking easier. The other thing I was going to say with wearing oxygen is Vaseline or something up the nose to provide a little bit of moisture, so you don't, especially if you're not used to wearing oxygen, if you're going on a couple of longish flights, you'll definitely want the some sort of moisture up your nose to stop you from getting a sore nose. Again, going back to the portable oxygen concentrator, I like to have also enough batteries for the trip, even if I can plug in, because I have had problems where they like to bring, or depending again on the airline, they might even put an engineer on the plane for you to plug in the socket and to plug everything in, and then find out that that particular power point doesn't work. So if you've got batteries, you've got that backup, you've got everything prepared. The other thing that I would say is I always take extra meds when I travel, because you just never know if you're going to get stuck somewhere. We're going to Tassie in a couple of weeks. I'm so excited. So with the whole, if everything gets thrown into disarray and all of a sudden we have to quarantine again between WA and Tasmania, I need to make sure I've got my extra meds in case I get stuck somewhere or whatever happens.
Thank you, Lucy. That's for such a great breakdown of what that's like. And, we've had people submit questions in around things like what adjustments have people made in day-to-day life when being on medication and living with PAH. And so I think that is an example of, again, going back to what you were saying, Tegan, with your Google Doc and being so organised and knowing who you need to speak to, who you need to show that information to. We have had a question actually come through as well around triple therapy and asking a bit more about what does life look like for you with triple therapy. Does anyone want to go and answer that or address that?
Okay, so when I was first diagnosed, I guess they put me straight on to, back then, I started on sildenafil, and then I guess as the years have passed, there's been other drugs that have become available, and as also the years progress, the disease does progress, and so they introduce you to other drugs so that you're not just relying on one drug to help you. So I'm now on, so I'm still on sildenafil, and I'm on ambrisentan, and I'm on IV therapy as well. So it's actually really changed my life, because I'm able to, obviously not do what a normal person would be able to do. However, I can, go for walks and, live a normal life for myself. And, I guess just being able to actually live, being on the triple therapy. So, yeah.
Thank you, Kylie. Thanks for sharing. And Tegan, did you want to add anything else to that as well?
Yeah, so triple therapy is just targeting the different elements that is causing PH or leading to the PH. So the triple therapy is the 3 elements. And so I'm on the triple therapy and have been for about since 2017 now. And, my pulmonary pressures go up and then down and up and then down and peter off for a bit and then back up. And so each time I'm added onto a medication, that there is some improvement and some, sometimes long-term improvement, sometimes shorter-term improvement. I am quite fortunate where even though my pressures might reach as high as 100 or 150, I still am able to do things that I considered my norm. I was 5 when I was diagnosed, so my norm was changed all the way back then. But I'm able to do lots of things despite having high pulmonary pressures and things like that. But the triple therapy definitely helps my condition. Not all patients are suitable for the IV version or the subcut version. And, there are lots of options available, as time goes on. When I was 5, I had one oral therapy that was targeted specifically for blood pressure. And, that's not a treatment. That's just, something that can help with some of the side effects and the symptoms, but it's not a targeted therapy. And so as time goes on, it's great to see so many targeted therapies available. There's options for patients in other countries at the moment to switch from IV to subcuts and all sorts of different things that are happening in the world. And I'm really hopeful for the future. A cure around the corner, maybe. It's just great to see so many different options available now when you compare it back to 1995. And I'm sure you guys are all, experiencing similar things, being diagnosed for such a long time as well, that things are changing in the medical world for good.
Thank you, Tegan. And yes, incredibly well put. Change, bringing about so much more hope and hopefully continuing to do so and have those positive impacts for people. We've had a lot more questions coming through, and I just want to remind everyone as well that if we're not able to get to your question, or if it is something that our health professional resource can address, we will do that. So if we don't get to it today, please know we will definitely follow up with that bonus on-demand recording. We do have a question that has come through around pregnancy and childbirth affecting your health with your PH. I know some of you have mentioned, you've proud parents and grandparents. Does anyone feel comfortable having sharing your own personal experiences about PAH and your pregnancies?
So I guess with my first baby, I wasn't diagnosed and I was fine. So it wasn't until my second pregnancy, I was well. I was, a bit short of breath, but I just put it down to being pregnant, not something wrong. So it wasn't until, Rory was born in January 2005, and I wasn't diagnosed until October 2006. So I was extremely unwell by that stage, and I was actually in a wheelchair, and they put me straight onto heart and double lung transplant list. So having two little kids and trying to explain, well, not even explain, but having, sort of dropping them off and being in hospital, it's a lot for them to take on, and it's a lot for you to not feel guilty about that, how it's affecting their lives, and trying to make them feel that mum's going to be okay. So it is a lot, but I think as they've grown older, they've grown up with everything. So we've actually named my pumps, and the kids, they aren't, they're sort of a part of my treatment now. They know what to do if there's something wrong. They know to ring the ambulance. They know where all my stuff is for my IV, if, my alarm goes off on my pump. So I sort of try to include them as much as I feel they can cope with. Otherwise, you find that if you leave them in the dark, it seems to make them more anxious. Obviously, I don't, tell them the big picture, not when they were little, but now they obviously are grown up, so they know that eventually maybe, if there's not a cure or something beforehand, I will end up needing new lungs. So I think it's just important to keep them in the loop and have family support, or, if you don't have family support, have friends to be able to always be on hand if they need or you need support with them. I think that's really important.
Thank you, Kylie. Thank you for being so open and sharing. And Sounds like you have an amazing strategy in place with your kids and naming the pumps, and yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I know, Kate, you've just put your virtual hand up, so you've got something to share as well.
Yeah, hi, thank you. So I was diagnosed when my daughter was 2. Sorry, I'll just lower my hand. I guess, like I said, I can trace symptoms right back to just after she was born. She's actually 30 now, so and has children of her own. So I've been lucky enough to have the grandparent experience as well. So she was 2, and there have been times, especially when she was little, when I was in hospital and I was missing birthdays, and which was just, really traumatic for me. She it wasn't that great. I was diagnosed, I was told that I wouldn't have any more children. So I was faced with a diagnosis, when I was in my early 20s. I was a sole parent. I was told I wouldn't have any more children. And I was told that if I was to fall pregnant, that there was a 50% chance that I would die during the pregnancy. And obviously that my unborn child would die as well. And that would then leave my daughter without a mother. So I was, which was just, again, something that needed to be dealt with. So I was again advised to have a tubal ligation, which I had in my mid-20s. So for me, it was the idea of pregnancy was a big trigger for trauma. I love my daughter. She's the biggest surprise I ever have, and I have grandchildren and they're amazing. But yeah, that trigger of pregnancy has brought many deep, dark thoughts and feelings. Took a long time to deal with, about 10 years even before my friends were having children. It took a long time for me to be happy with them, because just the overall feelings of helplessness and trauma came up in me. But so my daughter has always known me to have pulmonary hypertension. She's always known I've got tired, always known. She's never known anything else. And now her children, who live with us as well, the whole family lives with us. My medications have different colours for the different days, and they say, "What colour today, Grandma? What colour today? Is it pink? Is it pink? Is it green? No, it's blue." So yeah, they know nothing else, and it's just explaining to them and bringing them in as well and to whatever level that they can understand. So I hope that's helped.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. And
Chanel.
that's, I can't imagine that, it's a very difficult thing to talk about and share. So thank you to you and Kylie, and look, everyone who's joining us today, please do reach out to people for support, going through a difficult time. And, we will also, we can have part of that health professional bonus video is provide some more information around pregnancy as well. And again, please definitely do reach out if you're going through a difficult time, and check in with your healthcare team. I do actually have a question that's come through specifically for you, Tegan, as well. So I'm going to throw over to that. So this is actually about, Tegan, how, if you're happy to share, managed living with PH during your teenage years and establishing your career. So we'd love to hear more about that if you're happy to share.
Yeah, great. I'm happy to share. I mean, I can throw it sort of backwards to what Kate was saying in terms of, I found out I wasn't able to have a child as early as 16 years of age. So, my teenage years were fraught with right-sided heart failure, liver failure. I was on oxygen permanently. Rolling over in bed, I would have a seizure. I wasn't able to get to high school for my first day, not even my first month. And then magically I was on medication that did save me, and it really was magic. But I had to come to terms with so many different things throughout my teenage years: how to manage life, how to breathe, how to manage medications that, you know, adults probably struggle with. You know, I had to explain to my peers why I was carrying a backpack around. You know, I was terrified that in the corridors at a school that was, you know, actually quite a small school, but I was terrified that in the corridors they would rip my line out of my arm, because back then I was too unwell to have a permanent line in. I had a PICC line in that I had to manage. You know, I was a 16-year-old who was fairly tall, but I was also only about 40 kilos. And I had to go to school, and it was only with the support of all my friends that had come with me from primary school that I was able to survive, I guess, in terms of, you know, mentally and physically get through it. It was difficult, to be honest. And the fact that I had quite a supportive family was so important. My sisters grew up knowing that I was sick the whole time, so their support was great. But because I was the oldest, I was the one going through everything first in terms of high school and things like that. So, you know, I did rely heavily on my friends. I had some really great teachers that obviously saw something in me. You know, once I was well enough that I was going to class every day. You know, initially I was just going to art class because that was the thing that I liked. You know, they saw something in me, and I ended up being, you know, in the leadership committee at school, and then was school captain for my year 10, which was the top level for that school. And I really enjoyed my schooling after I sort of took control of my own health. But realistically, it wasn't until I was 16 that I even touched the IV medication. I just didn't want to know it. I didn't want to be part of it. You just do it to me. I don't want to know. Make me better, and I'll just figure it out on my own eventually. And then one day I was just like, no, nobody else can touch any medication. I'll do all the tablets, all the IV. No, I don't need anybody's help. I'm independent now. And basically from the age of 16, I've been independent with everything. You know, I guess it wasn't until I was 18 that I could drive myself to my appointments, but it's a slow and steady slope, I think, of learning and accepting and becoming, you know, allowing PH to be part of you, not identify as pulmonary hypertension patient, but it's just a small part of you that you have to learn to manage and cope with. And, you know, I like the whole time I constantly am never sure, you know, what's my life expectancy? How are we supposed to know this? I've been very well for so long now that, you know, as a 16-year-old, I couldn't imagine getting to 18. And as an 18-year-old, I couldn't imagine getting to 21. And at 21, I never imagined getting to 32. So, you know, it's just one of those things that, you know, technology and medicine are constantly changing and, you know, linking in with that medical team. But, you know, as a teenager, you're relying on your close-knit circle to support you wholeheartedly. And I was very lucky that I had such a great team.
Thank you, Tegan. And look, it certainly sounds like PH is a part of you and does not define you. And now you are in a career where you're helping other people, supporting other people, which is incredible and very inspiring. All of you, just how long you've been living with your lung condition and how you've overcome it, how you've incorporated your families into it, and are living, you know, life traveling, you know, doing all those things. So again, yeah, thank you to all of you for sharing. We've just had so many questions, which is fantastic. And I'm going to go into one around treatments actually again. This person has asked, do any of you experience any side effects from your treatments that impact on your daily life or need managing? So look, again, I think that all of you will have some incredible insights here. So look, should we go over, I'll go over to Lucy, if you want to start with Lucy, and then everyone please do share and add in your experiences.
Sorry, Chanel, can you repeat the question? Because my husband was signalling at me through the window. Yeah, sorry.
What a distraction.
He wanted to make me a cup of tea. But
Do you experience any side effects from your treatments that impact on your daily life and need managing?
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, look, yeah. The IV medication has this really strange thing where you have jaw pain. And it's just constantly there, particularly when you take the first bite of the food. It's just like, I can't explain it. It's almost like something snaps inside your jaw, but it's momentary and it's gone. So it's one of those things to me, most of the time I live with it because I know that my medication's working and it's keeping me alive. If it becomes unbearable, I'll take some Panadol or something like that. I also have diarrhea from the IV medication. But previous to being on the IV meds, I'd had lifelong constipation. So to me, the diarrhea is a bonus. It's and a lot of things. It's like listening to Tegan there. It was just. It's about framing things, and even Kate with her, her issues around parenting, and it's. I've suffered a lot with mental health issues and with seeking support for my mental health and my mental well-being, and I finally reached a place where now I just take everything as it comes, deal with it either mentally and just say, look, this is actually a good thing, it's not a bad thing, I'll just put up with it, or if there is some way I can deal with it, like an Imodium for the diarrhea or whatever my medical team will recommend. But if you're suffering side effects and they're bothering you, there's usually something you can do. So ask your team and don't suffer in silence. Or, as I said, I just take comfort from it. It's working. It's great.
Thank you, Lucy. Anyone else want to add any of their experiences with side effects and medication?
A side effect that affects me quite a lot on a day-to-day is swelling, and redness and heat, particularly in my legs if I'm sitting down or standing and not moving. So they're big things. So sitting down at a desk, having my feet raised, or sitting down eating dinner, having my feet raised. Just standing talking is difficult, believe it or not. So just for an example, an experience on a few days ago, my husband and I went to an art gallery, and standing and looking at the paintings and reading about them started to get really uncomfortable. So those experiences are cut short. Talking quite a lot, or particularly in a loud room, when you have to raise your voice. So that is getting a lot of breath to be able to do that. That's actually is also very tiring as well, and can be quite difficult. The things that you wouldn't necessarily think that perhaps talking a lot or talking loudly can be quite difficult, and just standing can be difficult. But they can be. But as Lucy said, means that the talking loudly and the raised voice isn't necessarily a symptom, a byproduct of the medication, but it's just something that you deal with your pulmonary hypertension. But surely the swelling and the redness, that does happen. Or people saying, oh, you got a bit of sun on the weekend, and you say, well, no, that's just my medication, that's just what it does. You can probably see here there's quite a lot of red here, so, and on my legs in particular it gets red when you're just standing and moving. So but yeah, as Lucy said, it means that things are working. So you just find ways to cope. And if it means that you can experience things for shorter amount of times, or in little bursts of times, well, at least you're experiencing them then not.
Thanks, Kate. And Lucy, I think you want to add a couple other things? Yeah.
I just wanted to say to Kate that, because I have the same thing if I'm trying to stand still, and my legs start to swell a little bit as well. But flight compression socks I find if I'm planning to do something like that, really help me. So it might be something for her to try as well. And you'll find little tricks along the way that, you know, are meant for other things, but might work. So yeah, I'd hate to miss out on an art gallery because of my legs.
Thank you, Lucy. Thanks for adding that.
It was the Walkley, so it was the Archibald. Sorry,
Oh,
got them mixed up. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Don't know how they do it. It was really, really good.
Now we've got, gosh, we've had so many questions. We are running out of time. Look, I will put one more question to you, and then perhaps before we finish up, we've had someone actually just ask for some general words of wisdom about living with PH or PH. But first, a question has come through around, does anyone get tired during the day and need to sleep? And so I thought we'd put that out to any of you to answer. If any of you would like to talk about energy levels, I know we've sort of touched on that already, but would anyone like to talk about energy and sleeping?
I guess you really have to do what your body's telling you to do. If you feel like you need to go and have a sleep, there's nothing wrong with doing that. I've found I'm also having issues being anemic as well, and having low iron levels. So I've just recently had 3 infusions in the last probably 6 weeks, trying to get my iron levels up. So prior to that, I was having daily sleeps. And, you know, you do feel bad and you feel guilty, but you just have to listen to your body, and it's okay to have a sleep if that's what you have to do to get through the day. It's not a bad thing. You just have to, it's hard to deal with when you just want to get stuff done around the house, or, you know, if people come home from work and they're like, oh, what have you done all day? And you sort of feel bad. But yeah, I guess you just have to listen to you, and it's worthwhile doing that so that it doesn't get worse. Or if you're really concerned, I would always contact your team, your medical team, to just make sure that there's nothing else going on. So yeah.
Yes, Lucy.
Yeah, I'd just like to address that as well. The feeling bad about not being able to do things, you know, and that's something, you know, I've had 33 years now of living with pulmonary hypertension, and, you know, get rid of that rubbish. You know, you are worthy, and you are, you know, you are an important human being, regardless of what you have or you don't have, and regardless of what you do and you don't do. You know, and people who are, you know, really, really bad human beings will you know, still get basic human rights. So be kind to yourself. You know, if you need a sleep, have a sleep. And if you can't clean the house, who cares? You know, you do what you can when you can, and you forgive yourself. Yeah, you didn't ask for any of this. You know, you deserve to be happy. So be happy. Yeah. I'm going to cry now. But, you know, it's said from joy. You know, you find your own happiness and live it.
Oh, well said. Be kind to yourself. It's so much easier to say it than do it sometimes. And I certainly hope that resonates with people, to have that self-compassion and to reach out, seek support when you need it. You know, as you were saying, Kylie, if you're not feeling well, listen to your body, checking in with your healthcare team. You've all just had such wonderful words of wisdom to share with everyone today. And we've got 2 more minutes before we finish up. So rather than picking from one of the questions that we've still got, I thought perhaps we could go around the group and just share any final thoughts around you know, living as well your best life with treatment and with this lung condition. So how about I start with Kate, if you've got any final thoughts that you'd like to share around living as well as you can?
Certainly one of my final thoughts is I love Lucy. She's well done to you on those thoughts about being kind to yourself and just to letting everything go. It's a bit like, you know, Elsa in our house, you know, just let it go. So thank you for reminding us all about that, Lucy. Thanks so much for that. And Kylie too, about you just have to do what you can do, and there is no other I guess in a sense there's no other choice. I just can't do it, so I just can't. So you have to deal with it, and everyone else around you has to deal with it as well. And I understand that can you take that on for other people, but you know, and I know that I do very much so. I project what you and think what other people might be feeling, but because then before they may not be thinking that at all. So you just do what you got to do.
Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Oh, no, thank you. Anyone else want to share anything, any of their experiences? Yes, Tegan, thank you.
I guess it's important to remember that everybody has a different PAH journey, and that we all start somewhere and all end somewhere different. Our medications are all different. The way we accept the medications is different. The way our body reacts is different. The internet is a scary place, and please stay off the internet as much as you can. It's overwhelming, it's scary. Use your resources as best you can. Your doctors and your healthcare team will advise you where to go. The Lung Foundation has so many good resources. You know, seeking advice from one of the panelists, you know, and anyone else who's lived this journey is a much better resource than what's online. You know, reading journal articles is scary, and it may not be something that is eligible for you. Everyone's pH is different. You know, it could start anywhere. It could start from no idea and having to deal with that. So, you know, there's lots of resources out there, but you've got to pick and choose which ones are for you, and not just, you know, take everything with a pinch of salt, see if it applies by speaking to your team, making sure that it's right and a fit for you, because there's a lot out there and it can be scary. And I guess scaring yourself isn't going to help. But, you know, seeking the right resources and the right answer for you, and then slowly trying to accept that is a journey. And you know, it's not going to be fixed tomorrow. We're all in journeys. You know, even after my 25 years of this journey, I'm still exploring things and still learning things about my disease. So please don't feel like you must know everything overnight. And I guess that's my last words of wisdom.
Thank you. And yes, a really good point, you know, not having to learn everything overnight, and just, again, that comes down to that being kind to yourself as well, I guess, and that, you know, there are people you can speak to, health professionals, resources, and not to be so harsh on yourself if you don't have all the answers. Now, that it does segue into what I was going to remind everyone as well, is that to please do reach out to our Information and Support Centre. Gosh, I feel like we all could have talked for a lot longer. Well, you know, we had so many questions. You're all such wonderful, inspiring people, and how fantastic that we were able to have 4 of you being so open and so genuine and willing to be honest and share how you've been coping. So thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate that. It's not always easy sometimes sharing your experiences, so I really do appreciate that. And we spoke a lot about support and connection. We have just recently launched our Peer Connect program for PAH. That's where we would connect people with the same lung condition to chat on the phone, to talk about their experiences, to share stories of hope, to share some of those tips, you know, Lucy, with your compression socks, or, you know, things like that, naming the pills for the colour of the day. So there are peer support programs where you can chat to other people. We have, as Tegan was saying, different resources available. So please do reach out and know that you're not alone. That's the most important thing. You're definitely not alone. So thank you again. We have come to the end of the webinar. Again, it is recorded, so we certainly will make that available, and we'll make our health professional resource available as well. So thank you again, and please take care of yourselves and stay in touch.